oh, by the way, based on 3 years of consistently decreasing student achievement, you're about one step away from your district being taken over by the state. Good luck. Excuse me? You mean again I'm in a cleanup position? Really? And so as I'm sitting there, I'm going, you know what? I'm in a very interesting predicament, in a very interesting situation, because I know what needs to be done. And I also know that being who I am and where I am, there's absolutely no way I'm going to survive this. No way I can continue beyond, I was like, if I make it 2, maybe 3 years, I'm lucky, right? And the reason was because there was nobody there that could talk with my folks about what they were about to deal with. You see, part of the reason I had taken that position because the demographics in the area had shifted. And oftentimes we don't talk about the demographics in an area shifting. Well, for those of you who have been in administration longer than 5 minutes, any administrators, principals, okay. So here, let me give you this scenario. This district used to be about 10% free or reduced. Over about a 12-year period, it increased to 70% free or reduced. 70. That part. And of course, for me, I'm thinking, yes, this is great. That's what I do. Second big issue. They had originally been about maybe 8 to 10% minoritized populations is more of the appropriate term, right? Now they were approaching 60 to 70%, all in about the same 10 to 12 year period, right? So they were dealing with some things that they didn't even know what they were dealing with, but I did. And originally I was thinking, okay, well, I got a good, 5 years in me to shake this up a bit. Remember, I got that call, and I didn't have the time that I knew I was going to have. And I couldn't find anybody that could help my board, help my schools, help my folks understand what was coming. And we all know what was coming, right? And so what I decided to do as I left my superintendency is to begin to talk with folks about what it takes when you come into situations and you need to have interracial conversations about race, especially with folks that aren't ready for it. And also amidst all these things that are happening, right? With cancel and consequence or whatever you want to call it, culture, the fact of the matter is it's even scarier than it was before. Because the minute you make a misstep, someone's going, hey, woman who appears to be white, you don't know what you're talking about. There's no way you can understand what, and you're going, I'm here to help. Educate, let me know. Well, it's not my job to educate you either. Well, then what am I supposed to do? Right? And so I wanted to have somebody somewhere that I was like looking at, is there anybody that can help me with this? And there really wasn't. So I decided to step out as I was leaving and become that person. And so, yes, this is a little bit about who I am. Yes, I do have 8 kids. I often have to show that because people can't believe it. They're like, how in the world? I'm like, well, he's kind of cute. We just keep having more. This is a little bit of my credentials because being a black woman in America, y'all gotta know, like, for real. Keep in mind, people from my board actually called USC to make sure my name was real. I was like, oh, where does that happen? On the internet, right? Right? And so I have to always put that up and be like, yes, I actually do have the degrees to prove what I've done. And yes, this is where I've been. I have served pretty much in every role. I firmly believe that my role as a teacher is often the one I love, and it's what I do now. I'm a teacher at a different level. But yes, I have served in all of these different roles. And I'm here because I love my educators, and I want to see you be able to be successful at having these conversations. So what does that mean? That means that in order for us to engage in these conversations, we have to set up the ground rules. Oftentimes, this slide right here is the most important slide of every one that I have, and it's the one that every single session I do, every time, even if I have a 10-session series in the district, we go over the expectations of engagement. Why? Because we do not have really a blueprint for how to talk about race and how to talk about these controversial topics, so they get in the way. So what does this mean? These are a couple of expectations that I'm going to have of you to engage with one another. If you notice, there's chart paper. You're actually going to talk with each other. This is not just going to be me doing this for the next hour and a half. How about no? This is going to be us conversing together. As we converse interracially about race, we have to think about agreements that you're going to have with yourself to avoid shame, blame, and victimization. And also, over here, we have some agreements that we're going to have with one another as a group so that we can engage in a conversation. Allow me to say more. with the agreements that we're going to have with ourselves, if you're familiar with Del Miguel Ruiz, how many of you are familiar or agree with? Oh, beautiful. So hopefully you have the book right next to your table and you look at it regularly, like, okay, and remember. The first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. And this is not just what, I'm not asking you to be very careful about what you say and, oh, I'm trying to find the right words. Please, the moment you find yourself trying to do that in this space, I'm going to ask you to stop. Say it. This is not what I mean by being impeccable with your word. What I mean by being impeccable with your word is, more importantly, how you speak to yourself. How do you speak to yourself in such a way? Sometimes we have these sayings that we say to ourselves, like, oh, that was stupid. Oh my goodness, I'm such an idiot. How many of you have said that to yourself sometimes? This is actually negative self-talk that prevents us from being able to move forward. My favorite saying was, oh, ding dong ding, that strikes again. Right? And while it has this nice little fun ring to it, it's still self-deprecating. So I'm going to ask you to forgive yourself ahead of time, because as we start to talk about some of these topics, you might go, oh, I've said that, or oh, I've done that. I may have caused harm related to race. And you know what? The truth of the matter is we all have. Everybody has, and we're all learning. So first, be impeccable with your word and how you're going to speak to yourself. The second one is not to take anything personally. This one takes a lot of on a life of its own, because we tend to, the minute someone's talking, we're all playing WIFM, right, in our head. That's what's in it for me. Everybody's playing that channel in their head. What is this? How does this relate to me? And because we're all playing WIFM, the minute I talk about anything, you think I'm literally talking to you. She must know something about my history, right? I know nobody in this room, right? And most of you probably don't know each other. But so we have to work hard not to take things personally, especially because there's things going on inside of us that cause this to happen. And taking things personally can be a detriment to having interracial conversations about race, because we're having different conversations with one another. Make sense? We come from different places. That brings us to our third expectation, not to make assumptions, right? Because I often say you have to have the courage to do one of two things. Either find the courage to ask a clarifying question, or develop the courage to let that mess go. You can't do both. You cannot come up with this idea in your head that everybody does is about you, and then not want to ask any questions because you're embarrassed or whatever reason, and then decide to hold on to it. You have literally created your own barrier for yourself, right? And so if we're going to engage in this work, we have to have either the courage to ask a clarifying question. Help me understand a little bit more what you meant by that. I heard you say this. Tell me a little bit more. And I'll give you an example real quick. This actually happened to me last week. I'm doing a session in a district that, let's just say, I was surprised they called me just as much as they were surprised they called me, right? They're like, who, when, where, right? And as one of the activities we do, they talk about what's their greatest hope and their greatest fear. You're going to talk about that in a moment. And the comment the man made was, he was like, well, I'm really concerned about indoctrination in our school district about blah, 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 blah. And literally I'm going, oh, crud. Like, so I'm literally like a hawk, like circling this table with this man. And like, I got to see where he's going with this one. I got to see where he, so I'm literally doing this. Like, but I'm really trying to see when he gets to this, like, where is he talking about? So literally one of the people had the courage to ask, like, hey, say more about this. He was like, well, actually, I'm talking about the fact that we've been indoctrinated not to talk about these topics. Right? But imagine if we had not had the courage to ask a clarifying question. Now we're sitting there going all the way around, myself included, because I'm like, I've trained them, I've got to trust them to do this, but I was literally like, oh my goodness, like, oh, did I cash the check already? Let me make sure. And so this is a clear example. If we don't have the courage to ask clarifying questions, you may not know what people are really meaning, and you haven't given them an opportunity to clarify their thinking. But we make so many assumptions. We want to jump down. Oh, I got it. It's like we're like triggerhead. You know, and it's like, wait a minute, let's take a step back. If we're going to really have these conversations, we've got to allow people to explain where they are and think it through. Because even as he was talking it through, he's like, oh, I can see where you guys were maybe thinking something different. Everybody's sitting there. You know, right? But I'm glad you had the courage to ask the question. Finally, and this is probably the most important agreement of all, hello, welcome, is to always do your best. You know what? The best is all you got. And sometimes your best is not 200%. It's maybe not even 100%. Sometimes maybe things are going on or you're not feeling like you're bringing your full self. Maybe your best today is 60%. Not feeling well, something happened. Bring the best you have and then just relax in that you've done it. So that's the first agreements that we have within us. This is all about you. Then we talk about the agreements to stay engaged with the group. Most of the time, when we talk about engagement, I'm talking about engaging mind, body, and spirit. Fully engaging and being vulnerable within that engagement. Why? Because engagement is a power move. Let's be honest, let's just be real. Engagement is a power move. There are times when we don't want to be involved and we just slide. Back in the day, I might be telling my age, I'm 25 years old. Just saying. I'm 25. I'm 25. I'm 25. Right? We're here. We're here. And so in my 25 years on this earth, sometimes folks get into situations where they feel like, oh my gosh, if I'm not fully engaged, if I'm not fully present, then I'm going to get in trouble or something like that. Also, or if engagement is a power move, they feel like, okay, back in the day, we saw this thing where you said, talk to the hand. Y'all remember that? Mm-hmm. See, I'm still 25, but I remember that. I know. I saw the movie somewhere. We saw it. And that whole thing was talk to the hand because the face don't want to listen or whatever it was, whatever. But really that was about, I don't want to hear you. I'm not interested in your perspective. What you have to say is not worthy to me. And I'm disengaging. And that's powerful for folks. It's also a huge insult for folks, right? So we ask you to stay engaged because we're going to experience discomfort. Yes, these are borrowed from my good friend Glenn Singleton. With Courageous Conversations about race. And the truth of the matter is that we do a lot to center our own comfort. We do a lot. Even from the clothes you wear, you're getting your, making sure we're full, making sure you have candy on the table. Some of you are like, oh, I'm a little warm or I'm a little cold. We do a lot to center our own comfort, right? And so literally getting uncomfortable is something that's foreign for some of us. What do you mean? What does it look like and feel like to get uncomfortable? And there's a difference between comfort and safety. That's oftentimes misconstrued. What do I mean by that? Nobody is going to come up here and get on you for your views, embarrass you, scream in your face. Prayerfully, no one's going to come and knock you upside the back of your head. Like that would be an unsafe situation, right? But being uncomfortable is, yeah, we're going to talk about some stuff and you might hear some stories that you may not agree with, that you may feel like somebody is talking about you personally. And so that may be uncomfortable. And so what we want to do is distinguish between comfort and safety and know we're going to actually lean into that discomfort. Because the equity leadership we seek and the conversations we're looking to have are on the other side of the comfort we covet and the discomfort we avoid. And we tend to avoid discomfort at all lengths. I don't want to be in that uncomfortable conversation, right? Why is it going to get uncomfortable? I'm going to ask each of you to speak your truth. And you know what? Your truth may be different from his truth, may be different from her truth. And that might make us a little uncomfortable. Doesn't mean we're unsafe, but it may make us uncomfortable. And finally, after I'm telling you, stay engaged even when it gets uncomfortable, and speak your truth, even though we've been trained not to speak our truth, because how many of our mothers have said, oh, don't do that, it'd be impolite. Don't make people feel bad. Oh, no, that's not going to be good for your career. And so after all that, I'm going to say, by the way, and we're not going to finish the conversations. After all that. So expect and accept non-closure. We're only going to get this far in this work, and then we can move forward. We are in a relay marathon when it comes to addressing issues of race. Think for a moment about the conversations that our colleagues were having right after Brown v. Board of Education in 1954. Think about what they were having in 1960 after Ruby Bridges integrated the first school. Mind you, that's after 1957, after Little Rock 9 and the college kind of fiasco that created, right? So we've been having these conversations slowly but surely, and now we've come into another era. Does that make sense? And so we're in a relay marathon. We are not going to finish this, but hopefully, prayerfully, we are going to hand to the next generation a better system than what we inherited. Does that make sense? Okay, but we all want to finish this. I mean, think about it, us as educators. I don't know about you, but I used to have like this perfect little party at the end of my lessons. If I could get through my entire lesson, from the opening all the way to the closing activity in the 60 or 70 minutes I had, how many of y'all throw personal parties? You'd be like, yes, there is no finishing a lesson prize, but I created it, right, for myself, right? I even go so far as to write down things that I've done just to cross them off the list. Is that just me? Okay, I bet you must be there too, right? It's like, I did that, went to the store. Check. Right, might not have been in there before, but I need credit for that. So for those of us who enjoy closure, this is going to mess with you. Just let you know. You're not going to be able, handle all the equity issues in the world. Check! You're not going to be able to write that down. Just so you know. And so as we engage in these conversations, just know that these agreements are the cornerstone of why this works, but it's also the challenge behind it. And so what I'm going to say is that yes, as we enter this is going to be tough, but it is very possible. You with me? Y'all still with me? All right, let's do this then.